Have you ever wondered how we are all learning the same stuff, but at the same time there is such a massive range of grades in school? How are people getting grade 9s whereas we are getting grade 7s? Hello guys, my name is Somya Garg, and in today's video I'll be going through how you can get better grades and marks in school. Although we aren't in school right now, we will eventually return, and you know what that means. Tests. But this time, you'll do better. Today I'll be going through how I've been getting better test results in school, and I'll be telling you how you could also get better results. Firstly, you need to realise that it takes a lot of dedication and resilience to get better grades. I'm pretty sure you have probably all heard of the Iceberg Analogy. What you see in class is somebody doing a test and then they get a grade 9. But what you don't see is their effort, discipline, attitude, determination, failure. I think you get my point. But what I am basically trying to say is that there will be sacrifices and obstacles, but it's all down to how much you want to get better marks. Personally, it's always been about how can I be at the top, how can I make a name for myself, how can I be better. It's always been that for me. It's all about the mindset. But this video is not about mindset, Somya. Moving on, the most important way to get marks is to realise how you are revising and not what you are revising. What revision techniques are you using? You don't need to be the same as everybody else. Like some people might do flashcards and they might say, bro, use flashcards. Or they might make notes and reread notes. But you just need to find the best way for you. And I have to say personally, reading over notes will not do. The 2 or possibly 3 things you should be looking at is active recall, spaced repetition, and interleaving revision. Firstly, active recall is basically where you are trying to retrieve information instead of reading it. So instead of reading notes, you're trying to retrieve information by answering questions. This will allow this piece of information or topic to move to your long-term memory quicker. So basically it is about looking at questions and trying to recall the information. The best way to use active recall is by using flashcards. But now you're going to say that, Somya, it takes too long to make flashcards. Well, I also thought that, but now I use flashcards, but not out of paper. I use Anki. And most of you might have heard this before, but it's an app on your computer which you can install for free. Anki is better than many other flashcard apps because it uses the work that you've already done and makes you answer the flashcards you are struggling with. You could also use things like Quizlet, but I prefer to use Anki. Another way you can use active recall instead of flashcards, because I don't really prefer flashcards, is to do a lot of practice questions. And literally you can search up practice questions for maths or biology or physics. Literally there are millions out there, just search it up. And by answering practice questions, you'll get used to the way questions are written and what type of questions will appear on the test. The other technique is spaced repetition. This is all about the forgetting curve made by Ebbinghaus. The graph shows that when you first learn something, it is easier and quicker to forget it, but when you interrupt this process, it will take longer to forget the information that you are learning. And if you keep on doing this over a longer period of time, it will take longer to forget the information. So let's say you've just learned about magnetism. You could look over the information after 30 minutes, and then after a couple of hours, then a day, and slowly increasing the time in between revision sessions on that piece of information. The interesting thing is when you are just about to forget the information, and if you suddenly remember it, that's when the connections in your brain get stronger. Combining these 2 revision techniques together is proved to be very effective. This is because these types of revision are active types of revision. This is because the brain is actually working harder, and in turn you are trying to work harder yourself. Reading notes is a passive way because it is easier to do, whereas trying to recall information and trying to remember stuff that you did a longer time ago takes a lot more effort. And again, these types of revision techniques take a lot of dedication, but in the end it will be very rewarding. The other method which I was talking about, and another method that I am trying to implement myself, is called interleaving revision. This is where you revise a topic for a small amount of time and move on to a completely different topic. So basically don't focus on one subject for too long. So instead of looking at, let's say, English for an hour, do it for 20 minutes, and then move on to history or geography for the next 20 minutes, and then come back to a different subject. Whilst doing this, you should be trying to make links between topics if possible. This makes the connections in your brain stronger. Now you might be like, Somya, this takes too much time. And yeah, I know what you mean. And for me, I love making notes. Most of my revision is mind maps. I would say at least 100. And if you're going to be reading off your notes, then make sure they are colourful. Don't just use highlighters, use different coloured inks. And always try to condense your notes as much as possible. The science behind it is that your retina picks up different colours, which makes it more appealing to the brain. The different colours also help you to focus on different bits of information. The reason behind why I use this passive way of revision, because it consolidates all the work that I've done for a certain topic, and I'll also read over my notes just before the test. Whilst reading my notes, I'll also try to make questions for myself, so I'm trying to combine active recall into it. Another very useful way of trying to recall information is what my teacher sometimes calls knowledge dumps. This is where you get a plain A4 piece of paper or any type of paper and write down the topic in the middle, and then just write anything you can about that topic. So let's say it was all about cells. So you could talk about animal cells, plant cells, bacteria cells. You could talk about stem cells, nerve cells, specialized cells. Just literally put all of the information onto a piece of A4 paper. It doesn't have to be organized at all, you just let it all out. And that way your brain is trying to recall all the information for a certain topic. That again is trying to incorporate active recall. The final thing which I use to get better grades is what I call numerous revision, and there's probably a name already about it. I used to just watch YouTube videos, which is great and all because you can pause it, rewind it, watch it again, and all that sort of stuff. But you are only using one source of revision. Numerous revision is all about using as many sources as possible for topics such as geography and science. This is because different sources have slightly different pieces of information which all are necessary. So for a subject like chemistry, I would use all of the techniques which I have mentioned already, but I would also incorporate mind maps, revision guides, videos, BBC Bitesize, and other websites like Physics and Maths Tutor. I would also look at the specification because your tests are based off what you were meant to learn, which comes from the specification. So if you look at what the specification requires you to learn, then you can get a sort of hint at what will be on the test. Using different sources allows you to look at topics from a different perspective, and sometimes can give you some extra information which can be useful for your exams. But, and this is a big but, it's important to mostly use what your teacher has taught you. This technique should be used after you understand what your teacher is telling you, because the chances are is that your teacher has already seen the test and wants to address certain information to you. Always mainly focus on what is in your book and what your teacher has taught you. So basically that is how I am going from a grade 6 to 8 to 9s in many of my subjects. Obviously these techniques take a lot of effort, but if it's being difficult, then that means you're doing it correctly and you're on the right track. Have a go at these techniques for the next time you have a test. That's all from me today. Have a good week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.